Today we're here to talk about your mastery of influence at the intersection of leadership. So, hands up if you think you already are quite an influential person. No need to be humble, it's okay. You're in the room, you've got a leadership mandate. I think most of you are already quite influential. You hold positions of authority, people look to you, you have trusted budgets, you're expected to do important things. I think it's a fair conclusion that we can make that you already are quite influential. Now, the key question around influence, particularly at the intersection of leadership, is what happens when you leave the room? Okay? When you enter the room, the influence is there. You have budget, you have mandate, you have a nice job title. People respect who you are, what you want to do. But when you leave the room, what happens to that influence? For many organizations, when the most senior person in the organization leaves the room, so does the influence. And that's because senior leaders can assume that their authority is influence. They can assume because of their job title, because of their size of budget, because of the responsibilities that have been endowed to them by their organization, that by default they are influential. And it may be that we think that is true, and our own reality is we are very influential. Just like me, when I go home, I think, I must be influential, let me try and convince my family to move to Mykonos. And my family say, absolutely not, it's too hot. That's because influence is not your reality. It is within somebody else's. You can think that you're influential all you like. If the people around you don't think that, you are not influential. And for leaders particularly, this is a paradox because authority is loud. And so when we enter a room, we can think we're very influential. People do as we say. Things are happening inside this organization, and I am the catalyst. But if you were to tomorrow strip the job title, strip the budget, strip the responsibility, would things still happen? And that is the difference between authority and influence. To understand more about this, I have undertaken some research, but clearly not enough research yet to convince my family to come to Mykonos with me. Some of the findings, you can find these in Harvard Business Review, strengthen your ability to influence people. What I wanted to look at here was specifically the intersection between influence and leadership because of the paradox that authority can have when we may think something is influential, but actually it's authoritarian. So we looked at much of the work that has taken place within this area, and we asked many questions. We spoke to lots of people to ascertain what is the reality? What is it that leaders can do to actually be influential long after they've left the room? And we found some very interesting things. Influence is not a binary construct. It's not as simple as saying, yes, this person is influential, or no, they're not. It's actually about where they are influential and the trade-offs and the impacts of those trade-offs. So for all intensive purposes, just so we are clear about what influence is and what it's not, it is not authority. It is not the mandated responsibility enthroned upon you as an important person in your organization. It is actually your ability to shape the attitudes, the mindset, the beliefs of those around you, without necessarily relying on formal authority. In the video at the very beginning, it said something very important. Influence without command. Do you remember the rest? Were you listening? Influence without command, but with inspiration. Which was a nice tee-up to this slide. It's about not necessarily relying on the formal authority. That's not to say you can't use formal authority, but influence should be strong enough that you don't need to rely on formal authority. It is not what some people would like to think a born trait. I was just born influential. Well, that's not entirely true, because specifically in a leadership domain, it's about how you construct the realities of other people, and if they come to the conclusion that you are not influential, then you're not, whether you think that you're born a certain way or you're not. What that means is anybody can learn it. Because actually, it's about learning the techniques, the tools, the frameworks that allow you to be perceived as influential in somebody else's reality. That's a strategic behavior that you can learn. And like anything that you learn, whether it be a language, whether you are a swimmer or you play golf, you have to keep doing it. You can't just decide, I am now a great swimmer. You have to go regularly. Or, I can now play golf and never practice. So, I've talked about different areas, different domains. This is what I mean by this. You as a leader find yourself in a very complex, challenging place. I don't have to describe to you what that feels like. It feels difficult. But why? And it's because we have competing priorities. And specifically, competing priorities can be considered in these 4 domains. We have always a bigger fish or the bigger dog. There's always somebody that we have to answer to, that holds us account, specifically somebody who may have more perceived power than we do. Our seniors. Then, to the side of us, we have peers, people who may hold similar responsibilities, similar mandates. They've had a similar experience to us, but they are not those who lead us or manage us, and indeed they are not who we lead either. They are peers, they are camaraderies, they are compatriots. This is lateral. Then we have followers. These could be direct headcount, people that we lead, people who we manage. It could also be junior colleagues in an organization that look to us for inspiration. Again, you can't decide who your followers are. Followers have decided to follow you. So you might say, well, I've only got 3 people in the organization who I manage. Those are the 3 people I need to care about. What if there's 300 people that look to you in times of crisis for inspiration? You are their source of influence, whether you have decided that or not. In their reality, you are the influential person. All eyes are on you. Those are followers. Then we have external to the organization. This is for you to define. It could be the media, could be the regulator, could be the recruitment consultant, could be anybody in a value chain. It's outside of the organization. So you have 4 competing priorities. The question, are you influential, is actually only the first half of a question. Are you influential in each of these 4 areas? And that is where influence and leadership intersect. So let's now go through each of these 4 areas, and within which I'm going to give you some tactical advice that you can take away to hone and strengthen your ability to influence within each of those areas. So we begin with the first one. We are influencing up. Now, we can't use formal authority here because individuals may have more formal authority than us. So it's difficult. We're trying to engage. What are we trying to do? Well, in this type of dynamic, we're trying to build rapport, gain trust, possibly get buy-in for something that we wish to do, maybe secure additional resource because there's never enough to go around. Stay invisible. Number of things. Ultimately, we are trying to get a yes. We're trying to get buy-in from a perceivably more senior level authority than us. Now, operating at this level is very difficult. I like to think of it as altitude. And the higher in an organization you climb, the thinner the air is. What that means is, if you are communicating and you are trying to engage with a perceivably more senior authority than yourself, you have to use clarity, fewer words. If you're trying to get a strategy across, what is it in its most simplistic form? Communicating with clarity at altitude is the answer to trying to secure engagement with a senior authority. That could allow you to do things such as market expansion and getting your buy-in, perhaps framing restructure. You're there at the table because you are wanting to do something, but you need the buy-in. So communicate what the outcome is. What value is it going to bring? Not necessarily the detail. So your job, when you're communicating at that level, is to be legible at the altitude. To think about that. The messaging that you're trying to convey at that senior table needs to be simplistic enough that it can be understood and bought in. So, audience participation time, because I know it's a little bit warm. So, hands up, have you ever left a meeting with senior partners and you have thought, wow, I felt that would have gone better. They just didn't get it. Hands up if that's ever been you, and I will go first. Happens to me all the time. And I'm supposed to teach this stuff, and it happens to me all the time. Yeah, it's really frustrating. But that's because we ourselves have been convinced that it's a very easy buy-in. But at the higher altitude, clearly, we haven't communicated with clarity. How many of you remember seeing the movie Inception? Remember Inception? Yeah, okay. So Inception actually is a really good learning point here. If you remember in Inception with Leonardo DiCaprio, the idea of the premise of the movie is you have to take a construct in its most simplistic form in order to embed within the human brain. The brain will reject it if it is not simplistic enough. So when you're communicating at altitude, the same thing applies. Your idea needs to be so simple and powerful enough that it can be immediately understood, and the ramifications and the details can be an afterthought. Communicate with clarity at altitude. Another analogy I like to bring is a diamond. Your communication at this level should be like a diamond. It's not a Rihanna reference. A diamond is strong. It can cope with scrutiny. That's how your message should be. It's also small enough to travel within the organization and stay the same. That's how your message should be. It's also quite desirable and nice to look at. That's how your message should be. Communicating at altitude. Every word counts. So, an example. Now, caveat to this, I could also do another lecture on the dystopian future of Amazon, but we're not going to do that today. Here, I'm talking about clarity of messaging. Jeff Bezos is a good example of this. Recently, when he stepped down from Amazon, everybody thought, what's the final message going to be? How is he going to convey this seminal moment? Now, you might expect a dossier, a huge movie, 20 pages. They didn't receive that. All they received was a single memo with a single line. Remember to operate just like it's day one. That's the message. Because embedded within the message is a warning and a danger against bureaucracy. But it doesn't need to give the danger. It's evident in the single line. The single line, just like the movie Inception, that idea I can now run with and I can operate at scale with. That's a message that's memorable. Even when you, as the messenger, leave the room, it's easy to remember. The ramifications can be considered afterwards. So think, when you're operating at scale, how you can do similar things. 3 things that I would advise you could do. Think about Inception or think about those diamonds. Lead with the most simplistic, most powerful, potent version of what you are trying to ascertain. If you're trying to restructure, for what? What's the outcome? What's the desired state that you are actually trying to sell? It's not the restructure you're trying to sell, it's the outcome. What is that? Is that efficiency savings? Is that productivity highs? Is that motivation? What are you selling? And remember, when you are engaging at that level, it's already assumed that you work hard. So it's not about starting the conversation. I have spent hours on this. I hope you like it. Well, it's assumed that's your job. You have to spend hours on these things. And it's not about hoping you like it. It's about the message. So that's managing up. We now move, managing sideways, or lateral influence, where we're looking to engage. These are peers, these are camaraderies. These may be individuals who look to us in times of need and us to them. We don't manage these individuals, we don't lead them. Maybe they have similar struggles to us. So why would you be engaging with these individuals? Maybe to build alliances. Maybe together you're trying to do joint projects. Maybe you have this functionality beneath you that both of you need to work together to resolve. It's very important, particularly for the future, for you to build long-standing relationships with peers, particularly as they themselves may progress within an organization. Some examples. Trying to bring people together. Maybe you're managing conflict. Maybe you need some political cover. Importantly, in times of plenty, you should always invest time and energy in peer collaboration, because when the storms come, these are the relationships that matter. When those storms come, you need those peers. Otherwise, leadership is such an isolated event, you don't want to be an island. It's about building the trust. So, second question. How many of you have tried to do that? So you're working with peers and maybe you're picking up the phone when there's issues and you're giving support and motivation, but actually there's a trade-off. There's only so far you can go because I only have so many minutes in a day. So how many hands up have we got here? Okay, yeah, quite a lot. Because when you have sunshine, somebody else may be having rain, and it's their storm. If you choose to invest your time now, they will remember that. And when darkness comes here, and sunshine is over here, and they have available resource and time and energy and motivation to help, they will. But if you haven't invested energy with them, maybe they won't. Richard Branson is a really good example of somebody who was willing to spend countless resource, time, energy on sustaining and building and developing lateral influence. For him, it was very important that peers align, because together you can create more than you can sustain individually. And from his perspective, the more that you can enhance those peer networks to support each other, the more your influence grows. Because remember, peer influence cannot, by definition, be based upon authority. You don't have authority over these individuals. You're not more senior than them. Therefore, the relationships that you are building supersedes any authority that may exist. Maybe one day they become a CEO in another organization, and now you have a trusted ally. And so, for this reason, it's very important to invest your time and energy and your resource in peer influence. 3 things for you to try. These are some suggestions, both from our research, but also from Branson himself. Be willing, this is very bold, to promote a peer who maybe has even outperformed you. Don't be trying to hide that away. Be willing to be bold enough to do that. Not only will they remember and forevermore cite you as somebody who has helped them, but also it demonstrates how authentic you are. If the peer has already outperformed you, why are you worried? The action has already happened. So at this point, the only decision you can make is, 1, I'm going to pretend like that didn't happen, or I'm going to benefit from this myself, and I'm going to promote them because it allows me to demonstrate how authentic I am. It helps me, it helps them. Why would we not? But of course, it's nervous, I know. Sometimes when there's conflict in an organization, a way to disarm conflict and reduce it is by recognizing it and then thinking, well, we're both very interested in this subject, in this outcome. Why don't we work together? We're clearly very vested in this. And the conflict exists because we both care. Let's work together on this. And what you will see then is a complete disarmament and a real opportunity to build something strong. And that's what people will remember. They remember the willingness to co-construct in times of conflict. And they will remember the times that you promoted, even when it looked as though it could outshine us. Thirdly, now we're focusing on our downward influence. These are people that either look to us, they are followers, or maybe we manage them directly. So this is much more developmental than the influence that we've talked about so far. What are we trying to do here? Create discretionary effort. And discretionary effort is how you know you are influential when you leave the room. Employees are actually going above and beyond the call of duty to make things happen. Not just because you have asked, but because they want to. That's what discretionary effort is. You can also begin to create succession strength. Like it or not, you are a leader today, but the people who we look after are going to be leaders tomorrow. And they will always remember, the same way that we remember the leaders who developed us. But what do you want to be remembered for? For helping or hindering? And that's why it's very important. Be willing to give them opportunities to grow and develop under you. Some examples. Maybe you're bringing your team together on a high-risk project that other people in the organization perhaps thinks they're not quite ready for. When you are coaching these individuals, it's not about what you would do in their situation. Too many times those conversations begin, well, when I was at your stage, this is what I did. Actually, it's about prompting questions. Well, if you did that, what would happen? And if you did that, what do you think might happen? And if you did this, what do you think might happen? And what you find is the individual will arrive at a conclusion themselves. Not because you have told them, but because you have nurtured them and you've nudged them to form their own conclusion. They will remember that. And they will remember that for a long time. So, your people, you're spending a lot of time and energy with them. Hands up if sometimes you wonder whether they're actually developing at all. Yeah, a couple, yeah. There's some very honest people in the room. Some. Now, this is challenging, I know. I have this problem also myself. One of the best ways that you can grow and enhance people was utilized by Barack Obama. He would hire talented people around him and then try and provide the most growth opportunities possible. This is also the same way that you will learn to drive a car or fly a plane. You need to experience ever more complex scenarios, either in real life or by simulation, so that you can advance the skills that you have. Remember, when you're driving a car, you can't learn every possible scenario in which you will find yourself in. It's not possible. But you will learn to reach a point in time where you are confident that no matter what happens, if a child steps out in front of a road, if your lights go off, if there's a crash, that you are confident enough of a driver that you will be okay. And in that moment, whatever it is, you will do the right thing. Similarly with pilots, you can't simulate every possible crisis scenario, but you can simulate them to a point where they have enough confidence, doesn't matter what happens, I'll deal with it. Same as leadership. And so in order to translate that for your people, they also need experiences. They need stretch and challenge. So delegation is one of the best ways you can do that. Delegation is actually a gift that you can give. You delegate things not because I just don't want to do that today. No, you're delegating opportunities for people that if they then accomplish the task, one, they have been stretched and challenged, and two, they have the praise and the success and the admiration that goes with that. Think back to Richard Branson. You've now shone the light on someone in your team. And that is why Obama actually said, you delegate what scares you, the big tasks. Because with the big task comes the big reward. You're there as a support mechanism. It's not about you just disappearing and being invisible, but you're willing to offer them the opportunity to tackle it, for them to step up. Of all of the influencing types, this one is the most scalable. Because you can't scale upwards, and you can't scale sideways, but downwards you can. Because you can scale an individual, and then they will tell somebody else, and then they will tell somebody else, and they will tell somebody else. And this, to use John Kotter's language, is your guiding coalition. Anybody use Kotter's 8-step model? Yeah. When he talks about the guiding coalition, it doesn't actually say how you get it. Well, this is how you can. You're building influence at scale so that when you wish to undertake large transformation projects, you don't have to look around to find a coalition. They're already there. They're the people that you've worked with and you've been willing to spend time, coach, and develop. Now, we've spent some time thinking internally. Now it's time to think externally. What are you trying to do here? You're trying to be visible. You're trying to think about how the market sees you. Maybe you're building trust with regulators, with partners, maybe with public opinion. Someone very importantly said, influence in this level is not about who you know. It's about who knows you. I wish that was mine, but it's not, okay? Who knows you? So when you're getting media requests and you get that warm feeling, you think, well, that's nice. Stop and think, is this necessary? Is this value adding for me? Or is this something that just feels a little bit nice? Now, there's nothing wrong with the external world, but there are many opportunities, too many that you can all say yes to. And the more effective you are, the more willing you are to say no to the opportunities that do not enhance the right visibility for you. Because appearing in the wrong places is not a good return on your investment of time. It's better to say no than to say yes to something that dilutes your brand. It's better to say nothing than to say the wrong thing. It's better to appear nowhere than everywhere. So, how many of you have been spending time and energy into building an external presence, but you're not quite clear exactly what that's for? Hands up. I knew this would be the one question that people would be like, oh, I don't want to answer that. But I think you know inside. Sometimes you just want an external presence, okay, but where? With whom? Is this with media? Is this with the regulator? Is this with recruitment consultants? Is this with another competitor? Like, where do you want to be known, and for what purpose? So Oprah Winfrey is a good example of somebody who says, you can't be everywhere at once, and nor should you want to be. You just got to be known for the thing that you want to be known for. You have to decide that. And then you broadcast that. Therefore, if you receive opportunities that fall outside of your core message, you should say no. It will strengthen what it is that you are about. So, 3 things for you to try in this regard. What is your story in its most simplistic, Inception-esque form? And get it right. Because if you don't, somebody else's reality is already describing who you are, what you are about, and what you do. So you should own it. It's your story. It's not about broadcasting to the world. It's about going one trusted ally at a time. So if, for example, there's an individual that you have sought out, maybe they're a competitor, maybe it's a media person or a regulator, you don't transmit to the whole world and hope that they just find out about you. No, you work out a path to that person. This is somebody I know who knows this person, who knows this person, who knows them. That's what I need to do. So now I just focus my time and effort and commitment into establishing those trusted allies who can open those doors. I don't need to be everywhere, I just need to be here. Now, as we start to wrap up, one thing is an uncomfortable truth. I've given you the model, but you can't do all the 4 things at the same time. And this is why it's hard, and that's why it's the job of a leader to decide where you invest your energy, your time, and your resource. You can't influence all at the same time because they are trade-offs. For example, sometimes you need to just focus up and you need to manage those expectations and those pressures, and you spend time with the seniors. And of course, if my seniors are over here and I'm spending more time visually, the further I am away from my team. So now my team think, oh, they just want to be really senior. They've forgotten about us. They just want to schmooze with the important people. But of course, if I then spend time with my team, the seniors might think they're not senior enough. They just want to be in the team just with slightly more remuneration. We don't see them as strategic. So it's a trade-off. You can't be in 2 places at the same time. Sometimes you need to be in your team and leading from the front, but then your peers will feel like you've ignored them. It's a trade-off. That's why it's hard. And sometimes you need to be externally very visible, and then everybody internally will start to think, what's your motivation here? Where are you? Where is your head at? And that's why it's really difficult. There is no optimum balance. I can only give you one example to study. It's about making choices. So Zhang Ruimin was the CEO of Haier, a big corporation in China, the largest white goods manufacturer in the world. And I have one slide on this. There's lots of books written. If you're interested, go and have a look. But essentially, they decided, rather than have those 4 domains, for them, they were willing to sacrifice influence at the senior level and move it down towards both their managers and employees by restructuring their entire organization into micro enterprises. A big decision. The way that Zhang Ruimin did this and to convince the board, the simple idea, the Inception-esque idea was simply this. What if our employees and our customers were the same people? Interesting question. It's not actually Zhang Ruimin's idea. It's the same question that Wikipedia can ask. It's the same question that Facebook can ask. It's the same question that Uber can ask. Because you can drive an Uber and you can be a rider. You can edit Wikipedia and also read Wikipedia. And you can create content on Facebook and also enjoy it. It's a platform. So one simple idea radicalized an entire organization to be completely deconstructed. The results, very famous, speak for themselves. Lots of impact because they were willing to be closer to the customer. But in order to do that, they recognized that they needed to move some of their domain of influence that existed at the top level into the bottom level. So, to end, it's not what you're born with or what you bring to the room. It's what is there when you leave it. It's not your personality. It's how you make others feel. And it's definitely not who you know, it's who knows you. You have choices to make in each of those 4 domains. I can't sit here and stand and tell you what the right decision is. Only you know that. You have to invest tactically, and you have to decide to what end. But as you do that, my final slide, go forward, think with clarity. If you're communicating at altitude, think about inception. Think about the diamond. Your message has to travel far and wide and be the same and have consistency. But it has to be beautifully simplistic. Be willing to be authentic and give credit to other people. They will remember that, even if you don't. And they will hold you up as a shining example of somebody who has helped them and naturally want to repay that time and time again. And then lastly, the Obama idea. Be willing to delegate what scares you. You're going to create enormous moments in other people's career. And as we know, when we think about our own career, we only remember moments. So be remembered. If you wish to connect after this, please do. I've got some details up here. Also, all of the ideas that have been included within the presentation you can find not in front of a paywall, but it's all free to access. Thank you again for listening, and please do remember, influence, it's not what you brought in to the room. It's what's there when you have exited. Thank you very much.